As the price of energy goes up, America continues to search for viable alternatives. Wind, solar, geothermal, and nuclear are important options and should be developed. But one of the most promising and perhaps the largest energy solution lies in America's own natural resource, oil shale. There is a huge need to develop resources like oil shale since the world is presently in a global energy dilemma. Over 30 billion barrels of oil per year are consumed worldwide. America alone uses over 7 billion barrels of oil each year, and over 70% of it is imported. That's up from 42% a decade ago. America currently produces only 3% of the world's oil, yet consumes 25%. As China, India, and many other countries modernize and develop, the demand for oil will continue to increase at a record pace.
We're continuing to grow, and yet we're not coming up with new sources of energy. Therefore, we have a tremendous problem as we depend so heavily on outside sources to take care of the energy of America.
We ought to move as much as we can towards being a self-sustaining country when it comes to energy. But we cannot be over the proverbial barrel of the Middle East going forward for economic and security reasons.
With potential terrorism, natural disasters, and other supply disruptions, America's energy policy and military strategy must adapt. Since every branch of the military relies heavily on oil and petroleum products for jets, tanks, ships, vehicles, and machinery, U.S. troops are at the mercy of oil-rich countries.
What do you do in case of a war, and let's say OPEC turns down the spigot, or Venezuela, who, as we know now, is not a great friend of the United States, they decide not to give us any more fuel.
American military strategy must be prepared to diversify its energy supply. To lessen their dependence on foreign oil, the Department of Defense has committed to using 200 million gallons per year of fuels derived from unconventional methods.
Clearly, the growing dependence that we have in America on foreign oil presents an economic and a national security risk. So we need to come up with some alternative ways to, in fact, fuel America going forward. And I think that's vitally important to America's interests.
As the price of energy goes up, the additional costs are passed on to every American consumer. High gas prices affect everyone, not just at the pump, but in the price of food, clothing, and most consumer goods. Virtually every aspect of the economy is dependent on oil, including transportation, manufacturing, consumer products, construction, and other key sectors. The entire U.S. economy, not just the military, is at the mercy of a few oil-rich countries and their leaders. The need for domestic energy has never been greater. For decades, America has searched for alternative energy sources, but today's economic factors and new technologies are making it more feasible. One solution to our energy problem can be found right here in America: oil shale. Oil shale is one of the most abundant and accessible energy sources in the United States. It is a fine-grained sedimentary rock that contains an organic material called kerogen. Kerogen can be heated, separated from the rock, processed, and turned into liquid shale oil. Shale oil is treated and refined into diesel, jet fuels, and gasoline. Experts say there are over 2.5 trillion barrels of recoverable oil in oil shale deposits around the world. Most of it, 73% or 1.8 trillion barrels, are in the United States. That's almost 3/4 of the world's oil shale. Crude oil, on the other hand, has only about 1 trillion recoverable barrels worldwide, and a large portion of that, or about 45%, is in the Middle East. Only about 5% of the world's recoverable crude oil is in the United States. For decades, many countries in Europe, South America, and Asia have developed oil shale with great results. But no other country has as large a resource of oil shale as the United States. America's largest oil shale supply is in Wyoming, Utah, and Colorado in the Green River Formation. This rich deposit contains an estimated 1 trillion barrels of oil and other resources.
The size of the resource ranges depending on the estimator. but there's no question that there are billions of barrels of oil.
You're talking about tremendous reserves. If we can recover up to 1 trillion barrels of oil, that's more proven reserves than all of the proven reserves in the Middle East put together.
That's why Oil Shale Exploration Company has accumulated several properties within the Green River Formation in Utah. OSEC's 31,000 acres of land includes the White River Mine property, the Skyline property, and the Orion property.
In looking at the entire OSEC controlled property, there's an estimate of about 3.5 billion barrels of oil that is within their control.
OSEC's land represents the largest non-governmentally owned oil shale reserves in the state of Utah. To meet the world's growing demand for oil, OSEC has entered into a joint venture arrangement with Petrobras from Brazil and Mitsui from Japan.
They are very notable companies. Petrobras is one of the most prosperous, probably the most prosperous oil company in the world today. And Mitsui is a well-known, successful multinational conglomerate that has experience investing in the oil industry.
One of the first objectives of the joint venture was to determine the feasibility of the project.
We performed a complete feasibility study, a comprehensive feasibility study, in order to see how compatible was our technology with the ore from Utah.
From the beginning, they insisted on doing it right, no shortcuts, which, when it comes to mining development in the United States, is often the exception rather than the rule.
The study looked to determine whether the Petro 6 technology could be used to produce a 50,000 barrels per day operation.
Contemplate 16 task reports, which involves technical aspects, the retort, the conciliation between our retort and the ore from Utah, water resources, mining issues, infrastructure, logistics, the hydrotreatment, how to enhance the oil, facilities, the plant itself. So Petrobras operates and developed this feasibility study as its contribution to the project.
And the results were very positive.
JBR is confident that OSEC and its partners can obtain all of the federal, state, and local permits necessary to get environmental approvals for this project.
The economic results of the study showed that the costs needed for capital and to extract and process oil shale are $38 to $44 per barrel. These findings compare favorably to other known methods of producing petroleum products.
From a mining perspective and a geologic perspective, this is a doable thing.
Also, an independent third party performed hydro-treating tests on the OSEC oil shale. This testing determined that the upgraded Utah shale oil is a premium synthetic crude with an API of 35. The synthetic crude can be further refined to either jet fuel or diesel fuel.
We were able to produce a synthetic crude with outstanding characteristics.
Characteristics like a low sulfur content and high cetane index.
It can be blended with diesel that is off spec, for example, 35 or less than that. When you blend them together, you pick this low quality diesel and push it up to the specification, and then you create value for the diesel that is off spec.
This testing, along with other factors, has proven that the oil produced from oil shale has significant value. After careful study, OSEC plans on using Petrobras's patented retort process called Petro 6 to process the oil shale in Utah. Petro 6 has been under development since the 1950s and is one of the few retorting processes that has shown significant production.
What I can tell you is that technically speaking, commercially speaking, and environmentally speaking, our technology is fully compatible with this ore from Utah.
Although the Petro 6 process is a proven technology, OSEC understands that new technologies are evolving and will actively explore new methods. Alberta, Canada has created a $20 billion per year industry recovering oil from oil sands. Their success has been the result of long-term commitment, effort, and contributions by multiple energy companies and the Canadian government. Experts agree that America should look to Canada's success with oil sands as a clear reason to support commercial development of oil shale.
The consensus is we've got to move ahead and we've got to develop an oil shale.
OSEC's commitment to the environment will ensure full compliance to all applicable laws and regulations. OSEC has deep respect for the land, air, and water, and is taking every measure needed to make sure the facility has no significant environmental impact.
I think all of us, even those in the energy business, want to be good stewards of the earth. We want to have clean air, we want to have clean water, we want to make sure that if we dig holes, we fill them back up and reclaim the area that's being disturbed.
The plant can easily comply with the environmental standards that are established in the United States.
OSEC's environmental plans include minimizing its impact on the land and recycling the spent shale, keeping the air clean by complying with air quality standards, and managing water use with government officials and other industrial users. Many cutting-edge technologies are being developed to preserve the environment, and OSEC is researching the processes that will be most effective at their site. The energy problem won't be fixed overnight. However, oil shale has the potential to reduce the United States' dependency on foreign oil, strengthen the economy, help national security, and fortify our nation.
It's a long-term supply of liquid fuels which are going to be necessary in this country to sustain our economy for many decades to come.
It will be a very viable industry and a great thing for the state of Utah and for all of America, and it should bring down the cost of energy rather substantially.
The time is now for energy independence, and oil shale is part of the energy solution.